first episode of 2024. We're having Cody Schneider again after coming one of the first guests in 2023. Bring him again to talk about what has been happening in his world in the last 6-7 months. Always very entertaining discussion. We talk about the use of AI a lot in many different ways, like a way to use it for personal branding, creating agencies, supercharging content for your marketing team. We talk about how to make money online, a few business ideas that he wishes to have time to start, but doesn't
businesses
have time
that you can
to
start right now. Steal his
Yeah.
ideas. These are some wicked ideas.
Exactly, like probably ideas that will make you want to quit your job tomorrow.
Yeah. As ever with Cody, it's just like we started somewhere, we went down lots of really interesting rabbit holes. I feel like we went deeper into some of the topics with him than we did in the previous time we spoke. So we really got into some points. But it was great as a super empowering start to 2024. So
I agree. I think it was a great way to kick off the year and to hopefully get to inspire some of you listeners to get some ideas into this new year. So I hope you like it. Enjoy. Hey.
it's 2024.
Woohoo! We need confettis.
Oh yeah.
But we don't have any confettis. Also, for those watching, you might see my Christmas tree in the back, so that gives you
A clue.
some intel as to when did we record this.
There's a party going on downstairs, so hopefully it's not too noisy.
A New Year's Eve party. Did you just have?
Yeah.
Did you just have 4 Negronis? For real?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Fuck. Good.
I made them myself, so they weren't particularly strong. Hence why I'm
Mm.
not pissed.
You're living good. So you're sacrificing the party to do this podcast with
Yeah.
all of
Yeah,
us.
people are like podcast wanker. Yeah, man,
God.
no, it's all good. It's all good.
Gosh. Nice.
So the first pod of 24, and we're talking to one of the first guests of 23.
Yeah. Which is Cody Schneider, who's coming back for round 2 of In Growth We Trust, and I'm excited about this one. Should be a bunch of good topic coming from him, he should join us in a few minutes. There we go. Yes.
What up?
Hey, Cody.
What is up?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you, man. Glad to be here. Sorry it took me a minute. I needed an espresso, so I just had a toilet flood in our second floor bathroom, and so it's just been a nightmare in our kitchen. There was like a hole in our ceiling for the last 2 weeks. It's just been.
Oh shit.
Oh no, that's
And then
not.
I work from home, right? Just
Yeah.
as you guys do as well. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's like,
man.
how do you recover? You got a guy upstairs with a jackhammer, and I'm trying to talk to an enterprise client. They're like, what's going on? I'm like,
Yeah. Can't
Yeah,
tell you.
the
it's
joys
my
of-
dog. So
That's my. Other than that, how are you, man? It's been a few months
good,
since
man.
last time
I'm
we
good.
spoke, so
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy year. I feel like it's
Yeah.
gone by so fast. I feel like it's just like I've turned 30 this next year, and it's like hitting me.
Oh.
I'm like, shit, I turned 30.
wow. So you're not 30 yet. You're turning 30
Yeah, I'm 29. So
in
this
2024.
next year,
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
I realized I have to
Impressive.
get my life together. Got a 401k. Started investing in ETFs.
Yeah.
Started intermittent fasting.
No.
I might get a plunge pool. Really go against everything that I preach against. No, I'll never
You're
fucking
big-
do that. That's
you're-
so
you're-
stupid.
You're becoming that guy. Yeah.
Hell
Intermittent.
no. That's my nightmare. If I'm that person, just send me out the pasture.
Man, at 29, I had my first kid. So, 29, 30, that's when I had my first kid. So, there's you'll see.
Yeah.
Big things.
We'll see.
Big
maybe
things.
maybe we'll have our kid. Maybe we have a kid already. We don't even know. Leah, you pregnant? Anyway.
So I was we were saying with Jake, like, this is gonna be the first episode of 2024. Your first guest. Happy New Year to everyone listening, everyone watching. We're putting the video on Spotify now for a few episodes, so people are watching on Spotify too, which is really cool. I don't know if you saw, like, you can switch your hosting to your podcast to Spotify. I
saw that. Anchor, allows that, which is awesome.
Really cool.
No, it's. I feel like they're investing so much. I'm curious why they laid off so many people, because it looked like a lot of them were in the podcasting sector of the company. Because all the data we've been seeing, like, again, we're in the industry, so we're like, it looks like. I don't know, man. It's always how it is. It's like, marketing spend decrease is the leading indicator of a recession. It's really how you know. It's not housing prices, not anything else. It's when marketing team budgets get cut. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we saw recently as well, since using Spotify as the hosting platform, they add a little link on the show notes automatically for voice message from the listeners. That you click a link and you can leave a voice recording to the host. So
super interesting.
We want to start using.
We just saw a company last week that was doing this, and then one of our enterprise clients actually asked for it. It was interesting. They were wanting it for like some of they have it's almost like solo monologue podcasts where it's just like they kind of it's storytelling, but they wanted to create a way where like the guests and hosts could interact. And so anyways, it's not on our product roadmap. Maybe we'll do it at some point, but more and more it's looking like all the companies are going to the same idea. It's like a full product suite where it's you record, edit, publish, repurpose all in the same space. Like we're seeing Riverside do this. We're seeing Descript do this, like through the acquisition. I think they bought Squadcast, didn't they? Or was it a different one?
Yeah,
it was them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And so, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like it's like whoever's closest to the media being produced is going to win long term in the average of the bell curve, because there's so many podcasts, but majority of them, aren't a part of networks. I think it's only like 20. It's something insane. It's like 10% of them are part of networks, but that's where all the money and the downloads are. So that's the other piece of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyways,
the HubSpot podcast network is like 35 podcasts strong at the moment. It's
totally. They're structured super interestingly. Like they have way more autonomy than a lot of these other ones do. The traditional all of them are structured different, but a lot of them are like, you have a creator and then they basically are part of this network, and then they hand off media, and then that company is just responsible for like all the post-production process, marketing, distribution, right? But HubSpot it does it pretty uniquely, where it's like they have account managers. I know Jonathan over there, he's an absolute gangster. He's the I think he's the senior podcast producer. I can't remember what his title is, but he's like with My First Million and all those guys. And I think he's in charge of like 10 shows or something. So they have like resources that you can lean into, but a lot of the times you have a producer and like they're kind of working individually. We work with Jenna Kuchar, I think her name is. Sorry if I butcher that, Jenna, but her producer and their team, and like they're like this like autonomous organization, right, within the larger ecosystem. So it's pretty disparate. I mean, I saw this quote from Sam Parr last week that was like VC or podcasting is the worst space for VC to go into, and like I was like, yes, we agree. That's why we're self-funding, and also soft pivoting into content repurposing powered by AI, because that is way more broad for marketing teams.
Yeah. So, but I guess that's a good transition to what you've been doing. Like, do you want to give us an update? Last time we spoke, we were just starting to use Swell as a tool to create the copy for the podcast, the transcript, timestamps. I think in the podcast we mentioned many times, like for us the most useful thing is just like the AI being able to look at the topics we mention and just give us the exact timestamps to use that for, like, that would take ages to do that manually or to re-listen to the whole thing. But what happened since? Like, what have you been doing?
Yeah. I'll give you a recap of this year, like AI content marketing, all the kind of things that we learned and where we see this going. And I know we'll talk about 2024 and what we're kind of envisioning and seeing like happening just trend wise. But high level, it started out as like an AI writer for podcasters. Quickly, it was like, it's evolved into, hey, what we really want to do is make templates that are like outputs that we want the AI to create. And then we just give it raw materials and it goes and it makes that template that we are like desiring, right? It makes total sense. Like, that's what I'm doing with ChatGPT, right? When I have a chat, like, I'm basically prompting it a couple different ways to like get an output to happen that is like good enough that I can then as a human go in and do the final edits, etc. And chat's great as a sandbox. Like, that's why it's become so popular. But like, all the marketing teams that we're talking to at this point, they're like, I want to use that as a sandbox, and then I never want to do it again. I just want to have that template that I can then just upload things into. And so that's how we're thinking about it more and more on the content repurposing side. What we're really trying to do is own as much of that process as possible. We will like probably focus only on the post-production process for the time being. None of the like there's so many companies that do audio like editing and sound, production, all that stuff. That's not really our real thing is like content repurposing and distribution. So roadmap wise, like what that looks like is like, okay, cool. I build these templates out. Like, I figure out the tone, style, and voice that I want my content to come out in. And then I save that as a template, and we're calling them prompt chains, but it's basically like a prompt and a response and a prompt and a response and a prompt and a response that's saved together as a template. And then it creates that final output that I'm looking for, like, 35 tweets that are written in an indifferent blah, blah, blah tone or whatever. And then at that point, like, it's all the channels that I'm trying to do distribution through, so that whether that be clips, like for Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, tweets, LinkedIn posts, etc. And then it's becoming pretty apparent that we're gonna we need to build a social media scheduling app that basically then that content just goes right from there and can be scheduled to all the platforms that you're trying to do distribution through. And so really how I'm thinking about it is like, that's where all this is kind of headed, and like what the customer is asking for. And so, whoever's paying you, build what they tell you. It's pretty simple, right? It's like business 101. But so that's on the content repurposing side. So the other thing we did this year was we spun out Draft Horse, and Draft Horse was it basically helped you write hundreds of SEO optimized articles in minutes. You give it a list of target keywords, and then it just like 100 articles are written 3 minutes later they're live on your blog in 5 minutes, which is crazy. What we saw happen there, and it really what made us kind of realize that so the AI is it's going from its general knowledge. So that's the general knowledge of the LLM. So it's always going to be writing to the center of the bell curve. And there's like this land grab that's happening right now, like with that AI generated content. And we can go super deep on this or leave it as surface level as we want. But fast forward 2 years and all the content that ever could be written is written because the cost is so cheap now. What happens to brands? Like, what do they have to do? And so what brands will have to do is they'll have to create to differentiate their content. They're going to have to talk to experts, right? And so this is how we see Swell being employed in the future is like, okay, cool. We're going to make it so you can do like multi-source. So I can do like, here's 5 different videos and 2 different PDFs and 4 different links. I can provide that as like source material. And then I say, hey, AI, like I'm trying to create this type of output, go do that. But where this gets like magic. So like just to run through that and do a simpler version. So I'd say I'm trying to write something on marketing for hotels, right? And I go talk to 5 experts that are like the experts at marketing for hotels, and I get their insights on like what's happening. So I take those transcripts from those conversations, say they're each 20 minutes long, and so I have whatever that is, like 2 hours of content that I then upload into an AI, and then from that I then say, okay, write me a blog post outline about marketing for hotels based on this source material. Creates that outline. It's like, now write me a blog post based on that source material. And suddenly, like, I of course I'd modify it so it's my tone of voice for the brand, etc. But suddenly, like, I have this thought leadership piece of content that is not just AI generated. It's also using the language that those experts are using, which is like a positioning tool for you, that whoever is making that content, because it looks like you're an expert. And that's like where this all ends up, right? And so it's going to be a combination of these things together. But to take that even a step further, like, now imagine, okay, like, I didn't interview just 5 people. Say my team has interviewed 1,000 people. And that lives in this library of content that I can go back and I can data mine. I can pull out clips. I can pull out articles. I can pull out, I can make social media posts. I can prompt against it. I can be like, hey, find me everything that was ever, like, every time that telehealth was mentioned, right? It's like, cool. It goes, finds all that content. I make a new corpus of information. It's like a subset of that whole library. Here's like a new little folder. And that folder, I can then, again, like, make clips, make content, etc. And so how we're seeing this, like, unraveling is basically a company's, like, internal library is going to be an asset to them, because it's a differentiation tool when everybody has, like, zero cost or close to zero cost, AI, LLM, general knowledge content. So anyways, lots to unpack there, but that's like where we're seeing this going. And like, that's the only way I see this ending up, because if I can write an article for 0.007 cents, right? Like, I'm going to write as many of those as I can, which means that the internet is just going to be covered with this stuff. Right?
It's going to burn out very quickly as soon as the masses are clued up in that stuff, especially like the SEO side of things. And if everyone's using the same, what you're saying is if everyone's using the same general knowledge from a ChatGPT or something like that, everything will become the same. Everything will become
100%.
It encourages
differentiated.
Encourages the point of, like, creating content as a brand, like having a podcast, having a YouTube channel, whatever, because, like you say, you're building this library of your own stuff to then utilize to build content off. Like, we use these episodes to build clips, as you do, but it's certainly not. I can definitely see how the next level of that becomes more interesting. Exactly how you say, let's make a folder where everyone talks about product growth or paywalls, and then it's like, rather than having to scroll through 36 episodes and try and do find and replace and all that kind of stuff. It's great. I think that's amazing.
And to be honest, we already have our almost 40 episodes in Swell already. I think we're using like 5% or 10% of the potential of what we could do with that thing. But it's like you said, it's already in there, and it's just a matter of us spending the time to then pulling out, every time whatever SEO was mentioned or TikTok ads were mentioned, and we can have these specific moments from like across 30 different guests.
100%.
That could be repurposed and slice and diced and however you want it. I think it just goes back to the point, which is, I think it's true for B2B, and I think maybe there's a bit more to talk about on, like, what does it mean for a B2C, like a consumer brand? What's the equivalent of that? Because for B2B it feels more obvious. It's like, talk to your audience and who you want to sell to. That's your base content, and then that content can be transformed into whatever you want. So have a podcast, have a newsletter, something where we talk to people, and make that the unique data set that no one else has, that makes then your prompt, the result of your prompt, unique. But for consumer, I guess it's the same thing, right? You could just talk to your customer and like make some original content to begin with. It could just also be just filmed. We talked about like street interviews and stuff. You just go on the street and talk to people about like an app that you're about to launch or something, and all of that. You
just make a like artificial influencer, right? Like, have you guys seen this thing that came out of Barcelona? Like that like woman that.
Yes,
go for
I saw that.
Okay, so she's AI generated. She doesn't exist. I think she's already at like 500,000 followers on Instagram. It's like 2 months old, 3 months old. She did an OnlyFans. It went to 20K overnight. Like, just crazy, right? They like cracked a version of Stable Diffusion and built their own model so that it does this. And it's like, it's just like 3 artists that are like, oh, we're just fucking around, you know, like we just want to see. So, you know, it always starts out like this, but then what does this evolve into? So like 2 things are going to happen in the next, I would guess 3 years. You're going to see agencies that pop up that build these influencers for your D2C brand. So here's Stephanie, and company XYZ that does e-commerce owns Stephanie, this digital influencer. And Stephanie makes all this content, right? And maybe it's multiple of them so that they can have like drama between the groups, right? And that creates this little world, right? That reporting can happen on. It's this, all this storytelling will happen around the brand that evolves that. Also, they can do like product placement, like within that, right? So this is going to be way cheaper than me going and hiring an influencer. Owning this group, it's going to be an asset that lives on long term, right? So that's one component of it. The other thing that we just saw this demo like, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. And there was a part where Max and I were like, dude, what are we doing? Like in comparison to this stuff. Like, so this was basically like they make a clone of an influencer for the influencer. And then the influencer can then go sell ads. Like imagine like a passion fruit, right? But for their ad placements. And they like the person uploads product photos. And then they basically mash those together where it's like the influencer and the product. So the product doesn't even have to be shipped. The influencer doesn't have to do anything, but the influencer just got paid $500 and the product just got like promoted, right? And so I think those things are inevitable. Like they're on the horizon for D2C. And so the I can't remember, I need to look up her name, the one that they're doing out of Barcelona. The other version of this is Lil Michaela. They've been doing this for I think around 5 years. But Lil Michaela is like there, you can tell it's like CGI generated. It's not like photorealism in the same way that the Barcelona is. But what Lil Michaela did is they have this whole group of influencers that all interact with each other and like do real world things in LA, right? Like they go to like a new restaurant and shit. And then they like get in fights, right? And it's this whole thing. So again, these are things that have already happened that are going to be paired together and these brands are going to do. And if I'm a brand, right, like say I'm Coach and I hire some, you know, famous celebrity to do this and they're like 22, right? And then they get a DUI driving their Ferrari in, you know, Miami. And suddenly it's like, shit, I just did this brand deal with this person and like now we're going to have to cut this contract. I have zero risk of that when it's a digital persona that I own entirely, and I'm just fabricating like the storytelling that's happening here. Social feels like the perfect channel for all of this, like whether it's shorts and reels and TikToks, right? It's like the perfect place for all of this to kind of happen. And you can make these video versions of like Stable Diffusion, and again, it's where the technology is super nascent, right? But all of the elements are there for like D2C brands to do this in the near future is what I'm like seeing happening, and like it just feels like a natural progression of all this. Also, it's so surreal. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, holy shit.
It is.
It's like, what is this world, you know?
It is. I mean, we've kind of touched on that before, and the whole influencer world is so like surface level and vapid that it doesn't matter if it's a real person or not, because you don't really care about the person behind the lens, right? It's when you see people with like 160,000 followers, they only care about the next image that they're seeing of that person. They have no interest about that person's life. Totally. It's very rare that you see
it's like a model in a magazine in the past,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
And so it's just replaced that, but it's now with For You page content, it's just showing that up into your life. You didn't even know you wanted it, right? But it's now there, and it's just kind of feeding you this like forever loop of content that you know you're going to like. So fast forward again, okay, we're gonna see a TikTok that's entirely AI generated content, and that's gonna happen in the next 2 years, right? Like it's gonna be a whole new social platform, and it literally just like generates content based off of what keeps you on platform long enough. And like the next thing you scroll is gonna be like better than the last thing, and it's just gonna get better, and better, and better, and be this like infinite
generated on the fly
machine.
Generated as you're scrolling up,
100%. Like, and again, all this it's still super early, but I'm over here and I'm like, delete your social, man. Like, know what it is, like treat it as a tool for business, but get the like from a I don't know. So
yeah.
We won't go there, but
because you can imagine that a powerful AI knowing how to self-improve itself based on just keeping someone's attention and the human brain being so easily tricked and, like, and addicted to things, whatever substances.
100%.
It could be like dopamine or drugs or alcohol, like whatever it is. You can imagine the downsides of that, like the downfall.
The algorithm exists already.
Yeah.
The technology is in like its, toddler form. So it's just a natural, like, all the costs are decreasing. It's just a natural like evolution of all of this. Like the next huge social app will be just entirely AI generated. And then, like, it's already happening on like YouTube Shorts, right? Like there's these channels where it's like, this is an 11 Labs voice. This is like AI generated background images. And the script is written by AI.
Yeah.
Like this is
the faceless channels.
The faceless YouTube channels. And I mean, I'm obsessed with them. And like, I want to do one, but I don't have time. Like there's like one, I just say, because I think it's so interesting. Like, oh, this has 1.5 million subs. And all it's doing is like Victorian facts that are weird, And it's like, they used to like save their pubic hair. And it's like, what? Like, of course, and you just get sucked into this. Yeah. And you don't know if it's real or not, and there's no fact checking, so who cares? You're just like kind of in this bubble, right?
It's the same on TikTok. There's a few accounts that are popping up, quite a few now, which are literally like simple concept, all faceless, like this or that, like just making you like pick between two objects, and it's like it's stupid. It's like nothing, but it's all made by AI. Like it's not like and it's growing really rapidly. All of these videos are getting millions of views, and it's like scary. It's scary.
Totally.
It's reading like the drop-off points in which people stop watching, and then all the data in the background is just generating 1,000 videos of you got Mr. Beast, for instance. He's studying his videos, and it takes him like 3 weeks to create the perfect video based on the last few weeks of content. But this is doing it literally like every minute of the day. It's just more and more content coming out.
100%.
It's crazy, man.
I mean, and you're like, again, we're starting to see stuff where it's like, it's cost effective to do like, mass, like social media listening, right? Like I can just go to a forum that's like about like, we'll call it, we'll say like skin routines, right? I can ingest all that content. I put it in a vector database and I'm like, cool, what are the key takeaways from this entire database? Like, what are the main pain points? X, Y, Z, here's those talking pain points. Cool. I have a new product line to launch. That is now, so you can do that so cheaply. And again, that's probably another use case that's like in the B2C e-com world. But yeah, just the things that we're kind of witnessing and I don't know, man.
It's so interesting though. Like one of the things that you wanted to touch on, which I think is also like an extension of that topic, is the usage of AI for personal branding. And I was curious to know what you're seeing, but also like if you're doing any of that for your own.
Totally. I mean, we're trying to augment as much of it as possible. Like the only thing that we can't figure out how to augment really is like sales. It's just such a high touch, human driven thing. Especially when it's like, I've been talking to this, some of these enterprise clients for like 5 to 6 months, and it's trying to push it through right at the end of the year, and it's like,
I know.
It's not
taking them to dinner and stuff.
Like
you can't have an AI doing that. Like if you have to go.
No, it just won't be as good as a human, right? But there's these other things where it's like, okay, cool. So like something we just saw recently, and like we're seeing clients do this, where it's like they go and they interview like founders or like C-suite executives or E-suite or whatever. And they, sit down with them for an hour and they basically ask them, how are you doing? What are you talking about? Like what sucked this week? What did you see? What do you find interesting? Blah, blah, blah. They pull that transcript and then they go and they repurpose that into clips for them. They repurpose that into tweets. They repurpose that into LinkedIn posts. They write blog posts for them. So it's basically ghostwriting, but it's like content creator ghostwriting, right?
Okay.
For personal brand building. So like what you guys are doing here is a great example of that. Like it could be the exact same thing. But I'm watching these people and it's like, yo, this is a solo founder with 30 clients. He's got 2 VAs. He's charging $5,000 a month and he's making $150,000, a month, right? Like, oh my God. Like that business, I mean, money.
It's just
like
money.
Totally. And so, I mean, again, it's agency work. So it's high touch and you're working with people. Like you still have to have that. But I mean, all of these tools are there. Like traditionally, if I wanted to do that same thing, like I'd need a team of probably, throw a number out, like at least probably 35, 40. like to do it well and do it effectively.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, like I think we're seeing that personal brand piece just become like a massive component. Also, like why is it happening? It gives people so much leverage, both within the company they're working at and like in the selling process when they're a founder, right? So like internally, I was just talking to a podcast host and she's like, yeah, I have so much leverage like in my company because like I get I'm talking to so many people and like I'm like a, you know, just a funnel of information. And also like because I'm in charge of like repurposing this content and distributing it across social, etc. Like her LinkedIn account becomes this incredibly valuable asset to the company. So I go into like, you know, salary renegotiations. I can be like, yo, here's all the value I'm adding that like I'm capturing for you that I'm not being paid for, right? Suddenly like they have this leverage point within the conversations. So, as a founder, you're almost like fearful of it. Like you need it and want it, but you simultaneously, it's like, shit, I'm gonna have to pay this person more for this, right? And so on the contrasting side, like, what we've seen is that with accounts that have, it's so stupid and it's an ephemeral, like, it's like your follower count doesn't actually, like, it's just a vanity metric of like how good you are at what you do. But if I DM from an account that has 300 followers, or if I DM from an account that has 15,000 followers, the response rate is going to be 10x higher on the account that has 15,000 followers, right? So again, if I'm a founder that's starting companies or a repeat founder or whatever, like that's a again leverage for me within the industry to like open up these conversations and have them with these, you know, this target ICP that I'm trying to get in relationship with. And so that's why like why this is valuable, like why we're seeing this trend start to happen. And I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I've talked to like 2 different companies that are doing this. Like one is doing it for like course creators, coaches. That's their whole target audience. And then the other one is doing it for like founders and again, like C-suite individuals. But I think this is just going to become like a standard. Like you're going to have a budget line, like you're a VP of marketing. And you're going to be like, yeah, like, and like, I'm going to expense this $5,000 a month. And like, this is going to help me make content that like basically, you know, it grows the company, right? And like provides more value to the company. And it's just a marketing line item that's going to happen. And it, you know, again, allows for those negotiations within your market. I can go to partners and I can be like, hey, like if you do this, and this is something we used actually at Rupa a lot, was like when we were negotiating with our lab partners, we would use the media as the leverage point because we were a small company, right? But it was like, hey, if you do a deal with us, like we'll get you this many views on the like downloads on the podcast, this many views across social. You'll get a blog post written about you. You'll get, you know, here's all of these things, and suddenly, I mean, for an incumbent that is like atrophied, they may be like the amount of content you can publish in a week as like a 3-person team, like with AI tools, is the amount that like a corporation can publish in a quarter, right? That, and so again, it's just leverage points. Like of course it is. It's just it's a new base technology that's shaking up the industry. So it's just figuring out, okay, what's the arbitrage that I can identify right now and exploit for the time being.
It's interesting. I put something out the other day around like my thoughts on why all the stuff we've spoken about, why brands need to become media companies or have a media arm and start creating media.
I saw that, dude. I thought it was so good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So one of the points I made in that was like 2023, 2024, and probably 2025. It's like all the barriers to content creation just removed completely. So everything we've spoken about, like you can create articles instantly. You'll probably be able to create a video podcast with like completely made up hosts, completely made up audio, and an AI script in the next like 24 months. So the issue seems to be distribution still. And you've already talked about TikTok and the way that feed works. And obviously there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be copying that, and there's going to be more discovery and less, you know, tailored to what it thinks you likes, whatever. But I feel like that's where we're going to see like a massive change. I don't know what that change is going to look like, and it'd be interesting to know what you think, Cody. But what do we do with all this content in the end of 2024? All these people are creating like way more exponential content's been created by now. How do we get it out there in front of the right people, and what can platforms do to kind of help that, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a great question, and like it's something we've been thinking about a lot. But like the For You page content is where everything is going. Like TikTok, invented it. Like every company is adopting it if they're, besides like Snapchat, but they're playing their own game, right? It is what it feels like. And they even have a version of it kind of with like the discovery feed that they have. That's kind of like, it almost feels like a rag, like the Sun or, something like that for like gossip or whatever, which is hilarious. But yeah, so if everybody heads towards For You page content, then that just means that the algorithm is going to decide, right? So it's going to come down to two things: consistency and volume. Like what we see across all companies, like data, is 1 out of 10 pieces of content goes viral. We have no idea why. We can kind of figure out like topics that are in this sort of like sphere, but it really comes down to like, it's magic, right? It's like that moment where it's like, I found a hook, here's an insight, and here's a call to action to go on further. Like if you can fabricate those moments, I mean, you're God, right? And like that's what good influencers are, is they're basically taking that playbook and then repeating it over and over again. But for brands, it's way harder to do. And so what I would suggest to them is it's just going to come down to volume. Like, especially if your thing isn't going to get any reach unless it hits like immediately. So then it's just a game of like, I'm doing 10 posts a day. We know that one will hit, and that's going to produce 80% of all of the impressions and traffic for that. And so then it just comes into, okay, how do I make this pipeline? Like, what are those, what's my process and the tools that I'm doing to automate as much of that process as possible? And again, like that's our thesis, and like what we're building at Swell is to capitalize on that, right? Long form pieces of anchor content chopped up into as many different forms across as many different channels as possible, distributed to those channels, and then have analytics on that bottom layer that's saying, hey, we're seeing stuff like this go viral in the last month. Let's find more stuff like that, and
more like this,
based on your back catalog, and suddenly, okay, I have all the tweets that I need for this next week, right? So hopefully that answers it. I don't know.
It's super interesting. It makes sense, right? You said at the start that you guys are going to move into potentially social scheduling. It's like the next, just take all of those pains away. And so the pain really is just creation of decent content. And then once you finish a session, boom, everything's done and out there. And then you haven't got to even think about what's going viral, what isn't. You just got to keep that train driving of content creation. And it handles it for you.
It's so interesting because I think collectively between everyone we know, like everyone's using that tool, that repurpose.io tool, to do the distribution right now. There are probably others, but I never hear about any other tool. But it feels like they're racking up the whole market with that tool. So it does feel like
it's
there is
terrible too.
Yeah, and it's terrible. Like so basic. It's so big, and it breaks
branded searches on repurpose.io are like 18,000. Like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy how many people use it. But it's like, mad. It makes sense. It like when you get down to it, like also this is how content has always been. Like journalism is just this, right? I talk to people, I take the core ideas, I build a narrative, and then I share it to some type of location. But traditionally, it was like, I was just going to newspapers or books. Now it's like we have all these other channels and these different formats that work on each of these channels, right? So I'm trying to create each of those formats for each of those channels, and so I don't know. All of this is like, it's not anything new. It's just different tools to do the same tasks. It's like, it's the classic cliche about marketing. Like, we're not reinventing anything. I'm just remixing it and calling it's the same idea. I'm just calling it something different.
And you know about like finding the movement into the For You page. There's something happening at the moment on, I don't know if it's a country, there's a location thing, or if it's worldwide, but like on Reels, for example. Now, if you look at the analytics on your Reels, you'll see that some of your Reels get shown to all of your followers and none of the non-followers, and then some Reels are getting shown to the only non-followers and none of your followers. And there used to be this option that I don't have access anymore, but if you delete the app and reinstall the app, you have the option again, which is add to feed, that little toggle thing. And that disappears. Like, I think they're rolling it out, but the only way to get it back, to then try and show your Reels to non-followers only and get extra reach, is to delete the app and bring it back. And that's mad to me. It's like the level of like fiddling you have to go through to like find these arbitrage right now. It's so annoying, But
totally. Totally.
There are these little tricks out there, and even when you do that, it's not even guaranteed that it will do that. So still trying to figure it out. But those things are just moving things, like you said, it's all moving into that direction. And these algorithms are being like tweaks, and they evolved over time, weeks over weeks, and you just have to like stay alert, like pay attention, because there's gonna be a period of time where maybe you're gonna be able to get like a ton of organic reach, like additional reach for very cheap, or but it's a madness.
I think to that point though too, like this is why you guys are great marketers, right? Because like you care about that shit.
Oh.
Like the average person is like, how do I not get fired? I mean, that's why you can charge more for like your services working at these companies or the organizations that you're a part of. And also like, again, there's a reason, you're some of the best in what you do is because of that, right? Because you even give a fuck about it. And so anyways, I guess like, I also think that these moments of arbitrage are always happening. It's like, how do I have enough feelers so that I'm like getting inbound for this, and like also just have trust with people where it's like, yo, I'm going to show you this thing. Like it's going to like, don't tell anyone. and then of course you tell like 3 people that like, you don't, that you're like, don't tell anyone, but the circle stays small. Right. And like, that's what these mastermind groups are, but that are, dumb as hell. I mean, half of it just happens in Discord anymore, or like, in Telegram and but or just like group chats with like 8 people that we that's like, yo, I'm testing this, I'm seeing this data, like what are you seeing? So anyway,
no, but
you need some marketing alpha groups, like NFT
exactly
alpha groups. You need people to these tricks.
Exactly.
There was something that I thought was great that I think you wanted to talk about, and I'm quite keen. I think you mentioned a few already, but there might be others. I know you're a busy guy and you always have a lot of ideas and stuff, but is there any like businesses you see like going into like 2024 that you want to get into, or you wish you could get into, that could have
there's so many.
It's
like
I can imagine.
I'm trying to get my life to or like really like my own distribution to a place where it's like, I love the puzzles of building early stage companies. Like once they're built, the operations, I just want to hand off. There's way better operators than me. I'm good at puzzles, I'm good at process, and I'm good at like delegation. And like, that's like, how I like my dream life is just doing that. But anyways, the things that I wish I could build right now, but don't have time. So the first one is surveys powered by AI. So surveys powered by AI, what does that even mean? So like we were just doing product research, like churn analysis, and we have this form that they fill out and we get all this information back. And traditionally it's like you'd scour through that and you'd collect all of like the key takeaways, and then you'd like organize those. So I was like, you know what, let's just like take all this and let's put it all into a context window. And I'm going to say, hey, AI, give me the key like takeaways, but I want you to weight them against each other. Like which ones are the most referenced that the customer has talked about. And so then I got a rank stack list of here's the things of why people are leaving. And that's it. I mean, at that point, product knows exactly what they need to do, right? So like they go and they solve those problems, and suddenly I have like, I've neutered churn. So like apply that to all these other spaces, like not just product research, but like, I mean, even to, you're on a campus and you're trying to understand, like there's what used to be this massive time consuming thing is now can just be automated. And what I love about this idea is that there's already huge, like massive industries around it, right? Like SurveyMonkey is a huge company that has existed forever. That is terrible. Like we've all used it at some point. And it's, I mean, I personally am like, oh my God, please, for the love of Christ, like don't make me, like at all costs, I'll stay away from it. But what I love about this, like these types of ideas, it's like, we already know they're validated. It's just from the ground up, making it AI powered. Right. And those are the opportunities that exist right now. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on it, or like how you can see that like in your space. But
I love it. I think the idea of it being dynamic as well. There's always a notion of lag. There's always a notion of lag when it comes to surveys or getting like insights from what people tell you or whatever.
It's almost like a chat bot that's happening.
Yeah, like in real time, you could have like the reason
Yeah.
why people are leaving, dynamically moving week on week, based on the themes, like if you think about a small company, that's not going to move that much. But imagine a company that has like hundreds of thousands of reviews a month. Or like reviews, I'm thinking about reviews weirdly. I'm not thinking about exit surveys, but it could be used at different point of the funnel, right? And you could have like dynamic ranking on the fly of,
or like net promoter score. Like, okay, like you gave a 1, like why is the reason you gave a 1? And then it just stack ranks. Okay, these things are similar semantically. And
exactly.
Have you seen those? I think one's called Canny.io. It's like it's like a public product roadmap. So you can see like you can basically like see what people are building in the product, and then you can vote on what you want like most. This is it's kind of that like I'm imagining those two technologies together, but it's just like instead of people voting, it's like they're voting with their responses. So like what they tell you frustrated them, like it's automatically going into like one of those one of those cards that's basically being stack ranked against each other. I love the dynamic idea though. I think like, and having that be public, like, hey, like here's what people are saying they're frustrated by, or or publicly internally to the product team. Like, and then it's just like, okay, I don't even have like, there's so much you could do there. It could be like, yo, just drop an audio message of what frustrated you. Like, imagine like it's like Loom in the browser, and it's like, here's these questions we want you to answer. Just record the transcript, and then we'll pull out the insights from that, right? So like you get even more like deeper knowledge that's happening. But instead of having to do like a customer conversation where it's sync, it could be async.
Yeah. I mean, what about this, right? For a dynamic example, taking it to the next level, instead of being on, say, churn, you have, because the whole thing for me right now that I'm kind of pushing is don't obsess over people that click, obsess over people that don't, because that's how you're going to improve your product, by changing that, right? So you have your product, whatever it is, your expected path through it, that 30% conversion rate of people that like get to the shipping page and then buy. So rather than waiting for that not to happen and then trying to send the people those emails a month later and say, why didn't you buy something? It's just like, boom, this is a deviation from the expected path. Just pop up straight away like, hey, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you take this behavior right now? Why didn't you buy this thing right now? And it's like live feedback as people are using the product. It's like a survey built into the product, and it's just constantly.
Totally, and it's top of mind. They're going to know exactly the reason that it occurred. Totally, 100%. We've been experimenting with that with pricing, where it's like, we found that there's in a certain time frame, if they don't buy, they're basically like, we've lost them at that point, right? So then it's like, okay, cool, they cross that threshold, like let's just give them an offer and see what happens. Like it's like 3 months for the price of 1, right? And like so far it's been interesting just to see like what's occurred, like from an activation standpoint. And then we've also been doing that on the churn side. So it's like, can we give you a month free for like if you give us feedback? And then they give us feedback, and then what that turns into is like, a lot of the times they just didn't know how to use the product in the way that they were trying to. And so it's like, cool, here's this 1v1 demo, and suddenly we just clawed back that churn, right? But thinking about, okay, how am I automating those things as well, and could it, the surveys within that relationship. So
have you found, Cody, from doing that, like I'm always interested in when you go to leave a product. Like the other day I quit my Canva subscription because I knew that within like 2 days it's going to send me some crazy offer to rejoin, and it did do that. And I would like to know, what is the retention of those customers? Like, do they come back just for those extra 3 months that are cheap and then they're still going to leave anyway? Or do they think like, I'm going to stay? I don't know if you've seen anything.
I'm not sure. There, a lot of the times too, those types of customers are like always the most customer service, right? Because they're like price sensitive customers are always the biggest pain in the ass. Quote me on that. But we don't have enough data yet, but next time you have me on, we'll circle around on the idea, and like we can talk about like, we saw that this worked, and this is what we learned based off of that. So
love it.
For us, it's like a lot of like solo creators, right? So it's like, okay, how do I just get them, and kind of on the smaller side, like enterprise is never going to think like that. They're like, tell me the cost that you're going to cut for me. It's like, cool, 60%. And they're like, okay, awesome, we're in. Here's the price we can do that at. And it's like, okay, like then it's, whatever it was costing you previously, like we'll do it for 1/5 of that cost. And they're like, yeah, it's great. So, so we do the next one.
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, you mentioned enterprise there, and you mentioned at the start about talking with enterprise customers. Like, are you starting to bring more enterprise clients in to the products that you're
running? Definitely. We're, again, just with what we're seeing in the market, like Riverside and Descript they're VC backed, right? So they have to go to every part of the bell curve, or like, that big centerpiece. And so that means they have to go very consumer. So the product is going to be kind of homogenous is probably the best way to describe it. In contrast, if you're a podcast agency or network and we have some clients where it's like they have 500 shows, right? And they're doing, an episode plus a week. So for them, it's like, that's 1,500 hours of time whatever that they're doing. Sorry, no public math. What is that? 2,000 hours plus of time that they're doing.
It's a lot.
and so like for them, like all of this content is coming in from different places as well. Like it's not like they're all recording in Riverside. Like every one of their people is doing it in some different way. Like whether it's Squadcast or Riverside or Zoom or, like some open source version of this, or even Google Meets. Like, so for them, they need like we're imagining like to visualize it, like it's like a big kind of like big funnel that goes to a single node, and then it goes to all these different podcast hosting, right? That's like how the agencies and networks work. We're trying to be that node where it's like we bring all those in and have all those out. There's also just so many competitors like in the consumer space. Like there's so many companies that are going after that. Also some of them that did like lifetime deals, which I have no idea how they're going to survive like as a company. Like, cause it's just like lifetime deals disallow you to have product feature parity long term. So if your competitor goes and they make a new like feature, like you have to create that to stay like parity, right?
Yeah.
So you can't but you don't have new cash flows to basically subsidize the cost of that to stay product feature parity. And so it's just like a bad founder decision unless you're funded. But again, it's just different mechanics. And like, or you're like trying to suck the oxygen out of the room, which is like another way to do it. But again, we just like, we're self-funded. So it's like, how do we build a sustainable company? And I also am like, I'm just not interested in like, could this work? I'm like, okay, like even if it's like an okay company and it gets to like an MRR where it's like, it's fine, it's sustainable, but it's like, it's not going to be a massive thing. That's still fine, right? It's like, that stays in the portfolio.
Exactly.
Like we move on to the next thing, or I move on to the next thing, and we get our next at bat. But that's kind of how I think about it. But
yeah, I love that.
Nice.
So next one is really similar.
Yeah.
It's social media scheduling powered by AI. So to what you were talking about with the repurpose.io, and honestly, like this is like kind of I think what we're gonna build. But it's basically just like, how do you make it so that people are doing distribution across all the channels that exist, every place that they're going. And then the killer features with all this is like, again, they give source material in some form. You give them, so it's like source material. It's like what you want the outputs to look like. So examples of your previous tweets, examples of your previous LinkedIn posts, all of that. And then you make all this new content. It gets scheduled, it gets published. It then analyzes the data. So the AI is looking at the data analytics and it's like, okay, what were the best performers? And then it can suggest to you, okay, content like this is doing the best. You should make more like that if you don't already have it, right? So it creates this flywheel that's happening. So why is this a good business? If you look at like later.com and Buffer and all of these companies, right? Like what we're seeing is that all of them are layering on these AI tools at a higher price. But it's like some like, it's just dumb features that you like, they don't actually provide any value. It's just like, this is AI, right?
Yeah.
And they were, they're 10 years old now at this point. It's crazy to think about that. But like these scheduling apps are 10 years old. Like they are so clumsy and clunky, and like there's so much like way better technology that we can build with at the current state that we're at. So like you have a market that's validated, you have incumbents that are big, slow, and doing like dumb shit and can't adopt this fast enough. And so those are the prime places for a new like a base technology to go and disrupt. So again, just another one that's I think really similar to the survey thing. That we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just making it better and more efficient. So
an AI social media manager would be cool. You just create your channel,
100%.
chuck content to a bot, and it just runs the channel.
Can you
100%.
still inject analytics data from your account through the APIs of most platforms still? Is it still
Yeah.
accessible
You can
from-
see all of that still. They're pretty good about. I mean, Twitter is an absolute shit show right now. It's just, I mean, that's the only one that's like not they're not okay. Just everything we're seeing, I'm like, it's every signal that they are not okay. Like, there's an account that I'm associated with, and it's like it has an outstanding bill, and like we're trying to pay it, but the credit card won't run. The bank is saying that it's not like, it's not flagging it as being fraud. So it's not the bank side. It's like it's on Twitter's side. We can't get a hold of support, and we're trying to pay them. Like it's crazy, like things like that where it's like
no,
okay,
it's so weird. Even on at my level, I think I was telling you about this. Running the Twitter X ads, crazy rich campaigns that I was
Totally.
running. My account got banned twice. The first time I got it back live after a few days, after messaging back and forth with, I don't know if it was a human or something, but I was just like, why is it flagged? I was literally promoting a podcast. Like, why is it that what's been flagged? What's the problem? The first one was fine, and then the second time it was banned for like 2 months. I couldn't get hold to anybody. People were like, literally the couple of replies that I had was like, yeah, your account's been banned, so you would never be able to run ads again. I'm like, what? like
crazy.
Like ever? Like
It's
I'm
crazy.
trying to spend money on your platform
crazy.
and you're blocking me. And if you have any sort of like touch point to like check what I was doing, I was literally just saying, listen to In Growth We Trust. It's a marketing podcast. Every marketer should be interested in it. And I was like, maybe, I don't know. I started to be paranoid.
And then you
but I
see
was
like an AI porn girlfriend ad, and that's chill though. That is chill.
Exactly.
But
Every
the
other
homies
ad is
can't
about
get
like
downloads.
Yeah. The homies can't get downloads, but you can promote every altcoin and crypto project that you want as an ad. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah,
That's
weird.
insane. But yeah, the data can all be pulled in, and like all of these libraries are starting to come out now, where you can use like Pandas. Sorry, I always call it Pandas. It's Pandas, but it's like a Python library for data analytics, and it basically can like ingest like a CSV or whatever of data, and then you can like ask it questions, and you can build these workflows that, okay, cool, like these are the things that we're trying to understand of like what is a good performing post, like how do we define that with like impression reach, etc. So
Nice. Okay. Nice. No, that makes sense.
cool. So the next two, these are agencies, and we kind of touched them on already. So I'll just like rapid fire through them. But like AI SEO agency, and just specialize in like e-commerce, right? So you go to Shopify stores, go to like builtwith.com, you buy their list, you get like every Shopify store in the world, and then just cold email every one of them and be like, hey, we do AI SEO. We write blog posts for you. We'll write a blog post a day for your company. And we'll charge you, whatever, $3,000 a month for that or something like that. So it's like $100 a post, or charge them $1,500, and you could easily make, that's $100K a month business with like again probably two or three people in like 6 months, no doubt. Like,
okay, so this is the segment of the podcast where everyone listening is gonna want to quit their day job and try one of these projects and be like, oh, this could be me.
I've always wanted to teach a university class, and like that's like about like startups or side hustles. I think I would call it like Side Hustles 101 or whatever, like Side Hustles 101. And like it, like have it be for college students, and like the opening line would be like, my goal with this class is to get you to drop out of college. Just we'll see how long it lasts, but anyways, yeah, that's the dream. So
yeah, that would work.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, podcast agencies for coaches or people who sell courses. They're already doing a ton of personal branding. They just need somebody to kind of wrap that up, right? And they're really good at being in front of camera and interviewing people and talking to people. Yes. And so you basically say, hey, like we'll handle like all the post-production. So we make the YouTube podcast, the video podcast. We get all these clips together for your social. We write all this stuff. And again, you could build this on top of Swell like easily. Like, and this is one of those things where it's like, there's days where I'm like, we're gonna soft launch a done for you service and see how people receive it. And then like we have to, Max and I have to reel ourselves back in and be like, okay, no, like we build software right now, like we're not doing service businesses. So.
You're thinking about building a business on top of your business.
Totally.
No, that's true. Because I was thinking about that one, like a podcast agency for founders and like in the B2B space that are not necessarily selling courses or being coaches. But you're right. I think the idea of going for coaches and people selling courses is they're already in a field of promoting themselves very intensely. And the founders that I talk to that are interested in podcast, and trust me, I think that's a boulevard there too. But it's harder because they're not necessarily like, even writing one post on LinkedIn is complicated for them because they don't understand how to do it. They're like, what am I talking about? Like, what if people don't read it? You know, like these like very like rookie questions, you know, like very like stage one of personal branding where I like, oh, how do I post once on LinkedIn? So trying to convince them to like record a podcast or them talking for an hour or whatever it is would be like, the hurdle is a lot. It's really hard.
I think you have to do it where it's like, hey, we're just going to have a conversation on a weekly basis. I'm going to come in with some random questions, and it's just like, it's this very free form thing, and then they extract the information. That'd be the only way that I could really see it get done. But I think there is an appetite for it though. Like I think founders want this because they're seeing other founders doing it, and they're like, fuck, like this is such a leverage point. So I of course I want to do it, right?
Yeah. I think
since we launched go for it.
Sorry, man. I was going to say very simple. Is like sit down at the website, log in once a week on like you just spend 20 minutes doing this. It just comes up 5 questions. What are a few cool things that you saw this week? What are some good calls you had this week? What's your business doing this week? You just literally talk at it, bam, 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 switch it off, forget about it for a week, and that's just generating you a whole week's worth of content that's going out on LinkedIn for you. It's super easy.
Totally.
Yeah. I think since we started the podcast, I'm trying to like get a sense of the number, but I think it's probably like 10 plus. So it's only been 6-7 months since we launched the podcast. I already met probably like 10 founders that are really keen on podcast or just about to get started that for sure would pay, like you said, like a few grand to have someone manage
2 to 3 grand
the creation.
Probably 5 if you're doing way more, and you could have some type of like tiered packaging, like depending on where they are.
So
it's
there
like,
is
hey,
money
clips,
like
right, or whatever, you know. So
there is a lot of money to be made in that. Wrap it up in like an agency type of format. Yeah, for sure. But it's the same as what you just said. It's like really close to what's already happening in the ghostwriting space, which these agencies are using Swell. They're using, already existing.
It's fucking humans. And they're using rev.com for transcription. It's crazy. Like, right, that whole space. Like, you could do this so easily, especially if you have like some knowledge on social and how each of those channels work and like what the content I need to make for each of them. But it's not rocket science, like it's just cold DMs and like, good service. So, but
exactly. All right.
Cool. Let's move on to I'm curious. These are more like business life questions, but like, what do you guys do for investments? Like, do you where do you put your money? Like, and again, this is one of these things where it's like, I'm like, I don't know where the fuck to invest it. Because I'm over here and I'm like, cool, like I can go and start a company, and like if I'm running it, I can probably get it to like where I'm getting a really good return on the money that I would invest, right?
An
ETF or any of these things. And so it's something I wrestle with a lot, like of like where the fuck do I put this so that I'm like grading the greatest return. So anyways, I was curious your guys' thoughts on that and like where your head's at with it.
Go for it, Jake.
I mean, I don't think I've had enough cash to be investing significantly.
What money?
Like since I had kids,
so money? that's where that is. Okay.
But before, so when I was doing it more regularly, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I just went too far down the rabbit hole of like trying to pick individual investments and monitor them, follow them, and all that kind of stuff. In the end, I just was chucking it all in trackers. So I'd have like funds, like a high risk fund or a non-high risk. And then also when I started getting into NFTs, you could also do those interesting things where you could invest regularly on like a collection of projects that were all bundled together. And like if you think about it, over time the market's going to grow. So if you've got enough spread in a fund and you could just put the cash in there and forget about it. Some months it'll be down, some months it'll be up, but in 20 years time, hopefully you've made a 20% return. It's obviously the slowest way to do it, but that for me is the easiest, less way of having to think about it way.
Yeah, I feel what you just said made me it was like an aha moment of just like, I'm good at building businesses. So like, that's where I want all my mental energy to go. I just want a thing where it's like, I'm not thinking about it. Cause like, it's not interesting to me too. Like these people that get off on like Warren Buffett and like stock investing and stock picks and shit. I'm like, that is so fucking boring. Yeah. Like if my life was that, like that's like being an accountant to me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. And no shade on my accountant. I appreciate what you do. Shout out John. But
shout out John. I think I was thinking about it as well. I think if you look at my life in like investing or money, like placing money somewhere, it's like boring. Then it's like 2021. Suddenly I'm like stock picking, bought NFTs, bought some crypto in that crazy 2020, 2021 period. And then now it's boring again. But yeah, it's like I'm very safe. Like I just made some bets, like everyone really, when it was like the thing, and I lost some money. I made some money. But in the end, I think it just didn't really move the needle that much. Other than that, it's just I know it's different in the US and in the UK, but for me, it's just like pension, just putting money for like retirement in the long term, and like some like safe savings, that. You get somehow access to like more or less access to instantly or non-instantly, like that's how far you want to invest it. But nothing crazy, like just like the ETF things, like how do you call it, the 500 thing, S&P 500. That's it. Like, I didn't even know the name. That's how much I know about it. I just like,
and you didn't even you went through a whole like financial savings, so you didn't even mention nude. So I know. What you said there, Cody, interesting, right? Because you're probably going to make more return if you had like 10 grand. It's like, do I put that in? Do I buy some stocks? Do I buy any of the random things that I could buy? Do I put it in a fund, or do I try and do something myself with it? And I think if you can do that successfully, like build a small little product or have a side hustle or try and be a consultant or that kind of thing, you could almost take that money and just quit your job and say, I'm gonna take $10,000, I'm gonna live on it for the next 3 months, and I'm gonna try and get like 5 clients, and that's gonna make me way bigger return on that in the next 12 months than anything else. And it sounds like maybe that's what you're like weighing up right now. Like, should you invest it in yourself or should you invest it in the market?
I think that's it. And like, honestly, that's where I'm just like landing, and like there's just no good answer. Like you talk to like entrepreneurs, and it's like the spectrum is insane. It's like the entrepreneurs that are like risk adverse entrepreneurs, right? They're like, oh, I'm doing all of these things, and then the other ones are like, no, I'm YOLOing everything I have into this next venture. And it's like, if I'm like, my view is like, if I can do this, right? And if I can't do this, like I'm dead. Like that's they're like, I'm gonna figure it out, right? And so it's kind of like just weighing those things. And more I'm like, okay, just do something that takes zero mental energy of management. Yeah. Like it's just an auto pull from the account. And then the rest is like, everything you can do for tax incentives, like do that. Like I just learned that we can save like 10% on taxes if like my girlfriend and I get married. So I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? So like she's like you're gonna, like, she's pissed. I said this to her earlier today. She's pissed that she's like, you want to marry me for taxes? I'm like, baby, I love you, but it's not like that. It's more just like, this is so stupid,
Did you say that to her? Did you go on your knees to say that to her? Oh, no.
Exactly. No.
You got to make sure the cost of that ring is going to be better than 20% savings.
Listen, we can buy you a nice ring, or I can go flip this and I can turn it into $100,000 of cash flow. But anyways, I was just curious how you guys think about it and what you do.
And we should say none of this is investment advice or financial advice, because I forgot for a second. Jake was like, we didn't even mention nude. I was like, oh fuck's sake! Like if someone listened to this, we're like, look at him talking about his financial.
I am not associated. Everything that I say, do not take as advice unless it's marketing related. So
yeah, exactly. That's the quote. That's the quote.
Yeah. So like in my mind, it's like I can do affiliate, I can do courses, so like education. I can do SaaS, so like software as a service in some way, and then I can do agencies. Those are like the 4 ways that I've really seen for people to like make consistent money. And maybe there's another one. It's like influencer, but I feel like that falls into the courses, like education category. Like if I have a YouTube channel or whatever, like I'm like a journalist. But I don't know. I was just curious, like, is there any other ones that you guys can think of that like, because my dream is like have all of those firing in some way, and I'm doing it on like a small scale currently, but like majority of the revenues that like we do on a monthly basis for across kind of all the things are from like software as a service, just because that's what we know how to do best. But anyway, yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
What about D2C?
Yeah, e-com. Yeah, for sure.
Too much. I think that's the one where I'm like, all the other things would come first for me than just like having stock and managing product. I can't bother. But interestingly, like SaaS, I listened to the latest Lenny's podcast with the guy from 37 Signals, and they have this interesting thing on their site right now. They're talking about they're building a new line of products under this umbrella called Once, which means the concept is that you, like in the old days, you pay for the software once and you own it. So with SaaS, right, you look at a SaaS product you've been paying for the past 12 months, and you've spent 10 times more on that than you would have bought it off the shelf, like if you could. So like Premiere Pro,
they have Adobe, so much style. I'm looking at this thing right now.
It's really nice, isn't it? It's really nice.
Church
but like
of
Adobe
recurring revenue, like look at tell me that isn't some of the best copy you've ever. Oh my god, dude!
It's very good. And they got
Greg Eisenberg said this recently, and he's like, "Baby, I'm doing this for style points. I'm not doing this." And I was like, "Fuck!" Like, that is the most gangster way to say that. Like, anyway, yeah. I'm in a different place where like I'm in the pit. I'm out here. I'm trying to get secure with all this stuff. Like they're at a different place where it's like, nah, I just want to do cool shit.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't know. It's awesome to see those types of things. But yeah, sorry, Jake, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. No, it's just that like I feel like SaaS has got to die at some point, because we pay so much on subscriptions and we never own the product, and it's just crazy. I think it's just like ridiculous. I know it's difficult to say, how do you own, I don't know, like an online tool? I don't know, but like things like Adobe, I hate the fact that we have to pay $60 a month to use Adobe, to just use Premiere Pro to edit the video for this podcast. And over the last year, I've spent like 10 times the last time you could buy that off the shelf. We've probably spent like 10x what that would have been. I don't need every most recent feature. I just need basic video editing functionality that they had 5 years ago. So anyway, when you said SaaS, I feel like a SaaS business is a great money maker, but I just wonder when the tide's going to turn and people are going to be like, fuck this, I'm spending too much money on subscriptions.
I totally agree, though. I wonder if it'll come back to where it's like I buy a license for a year.
Yeah.
It's not a subscription. Mm-hmm. Like I would do that in a heartbeat, because then it's just like I do that fee, or maybe it's not a license for a year. It's like I have no future features, but
yeah,
so it's like
cool.
I'm buying it at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. So like whatever is available then is like what I get for forever. I think it just gets hard. I mean, with SaaS, right? Because like this is something that we face where our infrastructure bills and costs are like, it's a monthly thing that's compounding, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like hard. I mean, it's different when the software like runs locally on your device. Like if I get Windows, like all that processing power, everything is happening like within that machine. So it's like, okay, you're basically absorbing the costs that I would have to traditionally do for you if it's a web application. Maybe it's like, not a local web app. It's like you open this app and it opens a window in your browser, but it's like actually running locally on your device. But then I don't know. There's probably a way around it. I'm curious to see what they do with Once, but it's just like the reason SaaS exists is like because of those costs. It just like how these like web action, like the costs that are associated with the web like the web app functioning. And also, I mean, let's just be transparent. Like it's because it's just fucking prints money, right? Like I build once and it just goes on for forever. But yeah, I think everybody's tired of it though. I think what you're describing is like 100%. Like nobody wants to pay subscriptions. True. I don't like.
Yeah.
I like even my bills. Like I'm like afraid of auto pay. Like our like electricity bill, because like one, it's like I just don't want them like My biggest fear is that like there's like a data leak with these like a government org, right? And like all of that information goes out because they have like we've seen the back end of what these companies are, right? Like they have no competency. But it's like, yeah, they're like connect your bank account with ACH that we can pull from whenever we want. Like holy shit. Like when you think about that, that's like crazy. It's crazy that exists.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Anyway.
That's true. I was thinking about that list. So we said affiliate courses, SaaS, and agencies. I think similarly to agencies, but more in the creator space, and that might go away in a few years, like we said, if everything is AI generated. But I feel like there is, because I'm quite obsessed with that, like short form video content for consumer based businesses. I think any 20-year-old right now could, and I've worked with some of them, but I think I would agency that competency, which is basically go on TikTok, see what's the trending type of content, and then basically sell yourself as the go-to person to make that content happen for a company that has no idea how to do it because their team is too big. So the perfect example for this was like, I used to work with these two ladies that were like literally like 19 and 20, and all they were doing is going in the street to shoot street interview style with people in random people in the street. So it's one of them talking to the person, the other one filming. And that got me thinking. I was like, if I was their age and I was paid what I was paying them, I was like, I could do that all day for like 10 brands, 20 brands. And then you start like hiring like a mini army of like 20-year-old, just like, it is based on what's trending in that moment, but some type of content is trending for a very long period of time, and it's applicable for any industries, any type of product. So that's like the perfect example for that. So I would like content as a service, but like
that's a great way to describe
in
it.
In the street, you know. So then it's unique. Again, it's like a unique data set of content that no one else can do. But yeah, on the creator,
it also builds a content moat. Like it's hard to copy something like that. I think that's another thing. Like we kind of touched on this, but like that again is going to be that differentiator when you have that library. It's like you only like it creates defensibility, right? Like if the LLM can write to anything, like your internal data is super valuable. Yeah. So
it's all about that. But yeah, that's the only one that I could think of that maybe is slightly different from that.
Or one more that just came to my mind as you were talking would be with ads. You know, like a simple thing like percentagecalculator.com. I think I must use that thing like 5 times a week. And the amount of money that they're creaming off ads to the people that are just visiting that site, it literally never gets updated. That's just a license to print money. Simple tool, you know, easily found. Chuck some AdSense on it, forget about it, do that 50 times, and then just see what happens.
Yeah, that's almost like affiliate and SaaS in the same way, right? Because it's probably like it's software, but you're monetizing it through an affiliate type of network. That's super interesting, actually. I always thought those companies were crazy, like that are like, you know, like change MP3 to MP4.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you know,
YouTube Ripper.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, but the process of the back end of that, right, is going to be crazy. Like you said, they're going to have some mad costs. So
totally. But with something like that, it can be pretty static. This is why I tell people to make Chrome extensions all the time, is because all the data processing, all the like CPU time is occurring on the device that it's on, right? So like you're not incurring any of that. It's just like the margin is basically, you know, 100% or whatever it is. So when you're just like 0 to 1ing, like you don't have to think about cash flow or any of that, like, or just like how am I, like any of the financials, right? You can just once it's there, it's there. So yeah, I mean that's actually what we've just been like pumping these out and doing the like Twitter ads to them, just to see what will happen. And it's been what. Yeah, it's working, which is ridiculous. And now I'm like, all right, I'm going to go try this on Facebook. Let's just do like everyone and then see what happens if we like try to get them to install. Because they released Google Analytics for the Chrome Web Store. So you can actually see the event, like you can actually see the conversion events and then like what's driving those conversion events and track the actual like cost per install or cost per sign up, like you would previously with
on the Chrome extension.
On the Chrome extension, yeah, exactly. And then I can work those numbers back of like, cool, like I pay X and it turns into Y, amount of installs, and we know that everybody that installs, like this percentage turns into a paying customer, and then you can just work those numbers. It's just classic SaaS numbers at that point. So anyways. I'll report back once we have real data. Those are the ones that I don't talk about in public because it's like they're just simple, dumb things, right?
they're the ones I love. You know the website boringcashcow.com?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's so good. It's the guy but goes around the web and he finds things, and then he speaks to the founder and asks them basically how much money they're making. So the first one that comes up here, I just looked at, boring website that measures your watch's accuracy. It's the most simple website ever. You just measure the accuracy of your wristwatch, and they're making $2,000 to $20,000 a month in ad revenue.
Oh my God,
it's crazy. You can spend so much time on that site getting inspired, but also pissed off.
100%. Also, if I was the founder, it's like, why would I ever talk about this? Like, this is the thing that's crazy to me, But it's always like some dude that built it as a side project, so he doesn't care,
exactly.
right?
But, exactly.
Anyway, cool.
All right.
2023.
Yes.
3 highlights, and let's do like 3 negatives too. Like, what were the things that were like, fuck? And then let's do the same thing for and let's do predictions for 2024. I gotta jump in 7 minutes, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do it quick. That's good.
Go for it.
So I think the highlights 2023. I think the biggest one is that AGI is way harder than we think. Like, that's one thing that I think is like, I saw this graph that's like, here's the compute required to like mimic a human brain as an example. And it's like, it's so much compute, right? So I think that is like a highlight of just like, whoa, that's kind of great. Like, everybody's talking about all this shit, but it's like, what's actually necessary to like do what's going on up here is wild, right?
It's really hard,
It's nice to know that, right?
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like, it's like, sweet, I got 10 years left of of money making ability. So I think the other thing that was a highlight was like, I honestly, I didn't really, in hindsight, it's like 2020 seeing this, but like, I think this is something that's really like, wait for those moments when huge changes happen in technology, and then just like capitalize on them when you're a founder, right? As fast as you can. We got really lucky in that process. But I think that like, it's almost taking that same idea that markets have, where it's like, you wait for recessions in the economy to go in and buy up these like undervalued assets. It's kind of the same philosophy of like, okay, cool. Like, I'm just like waiting for this next massive shift. And you probably get like, I would guess probably 3 or 4 of them in your lifetime when you can actually like build stuff in them. But when that happens, it's just like all in, pedal down, become, like ride that wave. And I missed one in blockchain. I did this course that was on like programming for Ethereum, and like I didn't realize what was happening. Like, there was such a huge opportunity in that moment for like smart contract building, and nobody knew really what they were doing. And so you can be an expert in that because it's not an established industry. Like, you can be an expert in that really easily. And so, anyways, I don't know if that's a highlight, but it's just like a large key takeaway from the last year that I was thinking about. And then I think the other highlight is just like thinking about, oh man, that's such a tough, more and more I'm just like, I think people want to pay to get the fuck offline, right? Like, it's kind of related to this thing that we're talking about with like so much content being made. Like, I'm more than ever, like, I want to go to, a show that like has no website, that has no event. Like, I get texted the address an hour before. Like, I don't know anything about it. I just like, it's almost like it's ephemeral in a way. Like, it's like, it's not something that, and ephemeral isn't the right word. It's more like it brings in this like, the sense of discovery that I didn't have, like, you don't really have anymore. Like, you think about like restaurants and stuff. It's like, fuck, you go to Eater and you go to all these places, but like the best restaurants, it's like I stumbled in there one night and it's like, damn, I just had the best Thai food I've ever eaten, right? And it's like, I think more and more of those things. So, and like,
do you think it's the risk of it being shit? Because nowadays when you can go and find a review, you know you're going to get something good. So it's like that risky. It could be bad. It could be
But
great.
it's always like, it's like a 6 or 7, you know? Like, and that's what I and this is something I've been wrestling with a lot, like just like personally, like what do I like more? Is like, do I want 1s or 10s? Or do I want like 6, 5 to 6 or 7?
Always 6 or 7,
Yeah, and it's like, I personally, like right now, like I'm more like leaning towards like, I want 1s or 10s. Like I want it to be the shittiest experience I've ever had, or it's the best thing I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That risk.
It's about feeling as well. It's like you want to feel something, whether it's very negative or very good. You want the extremes of like feeling something again, because the internet can become very like just
you just get like in this like static kind of, especially with the work we do, right? Like, and also we know what's going on behind the curtains. Like, it kills me. Like, I probably like Reddit way too much, right? Just because it's this absolute degenerate cesspool some places, and it's like also some of the coolest shit where you get like really cool. Like, there's this subreddit that's like called, I think it's called like Tripping Through Time or whatever. And it's just like, it's like memes, but with like old like Renaissance paintings, and so it's so good, right? And like it's like that, some like those things exist. So I guess I don't know. You can get like just like almost in that infinite machine that's just feeding you this, and so that's something else that I think is a highlight. I think that's a larger trend that's happening, and I'm like, the people that I think are cool and like way cooler than I will ever be able to be, that is what they're thinking about. That's what they're talking about, and they're trying to do more and more stuff that it's like it's not online, like it's just offline, and it's like and I think it's like it's a trend. So.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we spoke about in our like predictions 2024. It's kind of linked to the predictions as well for next year. It's like going back to real life connections, events. But I like the lo-fi aspect that you added to this as well. Like, very hard to get. You find it's like a piece of an address on a piece of paper that you find 2 hours before, and you just turn up, and it's the best best event that you've been to, like I think that's definitely an highlight and probably a trend going into the new year.
For sure. And it makes sense. Like, I mean, we saw this in the sorry, I gotta jump, guys, so unfortunately, but like we saw this in like Techno was doing these types of events like 5 years ago, right, where it's like you just, it's a phone number, you get a WhatsApp message or a text from like a random thing. And it's like, it was so cool, but now we're going to, I think, see that more and more. And also these things that it's just like word of mouth, like you can't know about them unless you know about them. Like that exclusivity piece, the internet made things less exclusive. And I think that like that is going to come back as like a signal of like, I am, a signal of like have value in that community, like or a signal of wealth. I don't even know what it is. It's like the people I know that are doing the coolest shit, they aren't even talking about it, right? And like they have zero intention of it. Like it's like they think it's dumb, right? Anyways. Meanwhile, I'm out here selling my soul like a fucking prostitute, and I will just capitalize on it for as long as they'll continue to pay me. So.
Well, man, go sell that soul now. You got to jump, right? So go do that soul.
I gotta jump. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me. I love coming on. It always makes me just like think about things that I never would without you. Just like having that conversation. So thanks again.
Awesome, man. Venus Mutual. We'll see you very soon.
Cheers. We'll talk to you soon. Later.
Peace, Cody.